Britain was once regarded as a worldwide symbol of politeness, a place where good manners were not shallow gestures but the invisible structure holding society together. From the simple act of lifting a cap to the complex customs surrounding afternoon tea, these unspoken rules guided everyday behavior. Somewhere between the hardships of the post-war years and the relaxed informality of modern life, however, that cultural treasure quietly faded. The traditions that shaped British character for generations slipped away, leaving behind memories, fragments of habit, and older generations puzzled by the disappearance of everyday courtesy. If you grew up when resilience came before comfort, this story will feel familiar. What follows is not nostalgia, but a look at a childhood shaped by necessity, where strength was learned early and life offered no safety nets. A walk through any British street in the middle of the 20th century revealed a carefully practiced choreography of male courtesy. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel to explore the stories, conflicts, and secrets that shaped 20th century Britannia. Your subscription helps us keep bringing more content like this. Men instinctively acknowledged women by tipping hats, rose when they entered a room, and gave up seats on crowded buses without hesitation. This code of conduct was not rooted in dominance, but in a shared respect that organized public life. Fathers taught their sons that true strength was shown through self-control, holding doors, standing rather than sitting, and behaving with quiet dignity. These actions were not symbolic niceties. They represented an understood agreement about how people should treat one another. That same code extended beyond interactions with women. Men addressed each other formally unless invited otherwise, shook hands firmly but never aggressively, and recognized raised voices as evidence of lost composure. A promise meant something, because breaking it carried social consequences. Conflicts were settled calmly, often over a drink, rather than through shouting. Emotional restraint was not seen as suppression, but as discipline that preserved social balance and collective harmony. Few things captured British identity more clearly than the practice of queuing. During the 40s and 50s, orderly lines formed naturally at bus stops, shops, and even bomb shelters. No laws enforced this behavior. It existed because everyone understood that disorder benefited no one. Cutting ahead was not just impolite, it was a moral lapse that invited immediate disapproval. The queue symbolized fairness, placing everyone on equal footing regardless of status. This habit reflected a national mindset shaped by rationing, blackouts, and shared sacrifice. In moments of scarcity and danger, the queue became a place where justice overruled privilege. Elderly women defended their position firmly while allowing expectant mothers to pass without resentment. Children learned patience by example, standing quietly beside adults and understanding that their needs were not more important than others. Waiting together fostered small connections, as strangers exchanged remarks about the weather or the war, turning ordinary errands into moments of shared humanity. Afternoon tea reached its most refined expression in post-war Britain, evolving into a ritual where every movement carried meaning. Hosts arranged fine china with precision, ensured spoons rested correctly, and observed strict rules about milk and tea. The occasion went far beyond refreshment, serving as a social stage where relationships were reinforced and hierarchies subtly acknowledged. Invitations were formal, responses prompt, and lateness unacceptable. Guests dressed appropriately, arrived with flowers, and steered conversation away from controversial topics. Entire manuals were devoted to proper tea behavior. Stirring gently rather than clinking cups, eating sandwiches in the correct number of bites, and following regional loyalties regarding jam and cream on scones. Despite popular myths, raised pinkies were discouraged, and slurping was social suicide. These detailed customs created invisible boundaries, distinguishing those who belonged from those still learning, and maintaining class divisions through the smallest gestures. Communication in Britain once relied heavily on implication rather than directness. Meaning often hid beneath carefully chosen words. Saying something was quite good could signal high praise, while not bad might indicate approval. This linguistic subtlety required cultural fluency, where tone and understatement conveyed more than words alone. Complaints emerged as gentle suggestions, Criticism arrived wrapped in compliments, and enthusiasm was deliberately restrained. Emotional moderation extended beyond speech into behavior. Excessive displays of feeling were seen as a lack of self-control. Even during wartime devastation, people described tragedies with dry understatement. This was not indifference, but emotional armor that allowed society to function despite overwhelming loss. Children learned early to keep tears private, temper joy, and turn anger into wit. This reserve became a defining national trait, distinguishing British composure from more expressive cultures. Family meals in the 1960s followed a strict and familiar order. Everyone knew their place. Fathers presided at the table, mothers coordinated from the kitchen, and children spoke only when invited. Tables were set with specific cutlery for each course, and mistakes brought quiet embarrassment. Meals often began with grace, reinforcing gratitude as a social value. Manners were closely monitored, elbows off the table, requests made politely, and patience practiced until everyone was served. These dinners functioned as lessons in discipline and respect. Eating was slow and deliberate, not rushed, and leaving food invited reminders of hardship elsewhere. Compliments were modest but sincere. Meals were not just about nourishment, but about reinforcing family structure and social values through repetition. Before telephones became commonplace, letter writing was treated as a serious responsibility governed by clear rules. Openings and closings reflected levels of familiarity, handwriting revealed character, and errors were deeply embarrassing. Quality paper was expected, and spelling mistakes reflected poorly on entire households. Thank you notes were obligatory and expected promptly. Letters took time to arrive, making each one meaningful and treasured. Families saved them carefully, rereading words from loved ones far away. The formality of letters allowed emotion to be expressed within structure, offering dignity without vulnerability. Each envelope represented effort, respect, and thoughtfulness that instant communication would later erase. Public transport once operated according to unspoken etiquette. Passengers moved with consideration, offering seats without being asked and apologizing even when not at fault. Conversations stayed quiet, newspapers were folded neatly, and personal space was respected as much as possible. Boarding before others exited was unthinkable. Even during crowded commutes, civility prevailed. Young people yielded seats willingly, pregnant women were subtly protected, and accidental contact prompted immediate apologies. These daily interactions reinforced a shared sense of responsibility, reminding people that consideration made close living bearable. Shopping, too, followed established scripts. Shopkeepers addressed customers formally, while customers responded with consistent politeness. Relationships mattered. Grocers knew preferences, butchers offered advice, and bakers quietly assisted those in need. Transactions involved conversation, trust, and mutual respect. Complaints were expressed discreetly, allowing problems to be resolved without public embarrassment. Shopping was social as much as practical, reinforcing community ties rather than functioning as a purely commercial exchange. Early household telephones brought their own etiquette. Calls were answered formally, voices remained controlled, and timing mattered. Interrupting meals or calling late was unacceptable unless urgent. Children learned scripted responses and message-taking skills. Calls required preparation, and long-distance conversations were events planned in advance. Even ending a call involved careful courtesy. The device was treated as a privilege, not a right, and using it properly signaled good upbringing. Neighborhood life was shaped by respectful distance. Privacy was valued, boundaries observed, and unannounced visits avoided. Polite notes replaced confrontations, and help appeared quietly in times of need. This reserve created stronger communities, where assistance came without humiliation and dignity was preserved. Streets functioned like extended families, bound together by subtle awareness rather than constant interaction. Most of these rules have faded, replaced by speed, informality, and efficiency. Messages are instant, manners relaxed, and formality often dismissed as outdated. What disappeared was not just politeness, but a shared framework for navigating life together with care and restraint. The question remains whether society truly gained freedom by abandoning formality, or whether it simply forgot how to be gracious. Britain once shone as a worldwide symbol of politeness, a place where good manners were not a surface performance but the invisible threads holding social life together. From the simple lift of a hat to the carefully observed rituals of tea, these silent conventions guided daily behavior. Somewhere between the hardships following the war and the rise of casual modern habits, something invaluable faded. The customs that had shaped British character for centuries slowly dissolved, leaving behind only wistful memories and older generations quietly asking when everyday decency slipped from view. Strolling along a British street in the middle of the 20th century revealed a refined choreography of courtesy. Men acknowledged women with small bows of the head, rose when they entered a room, and instinctively surrendered seats on crowded buses. This code of conduct was not about dominance, but about a shared script of respect that ordered public life. Fathers instructed sons that strength showed itself through self-control, through holding doors and never remaining seated while a woman stood. These acts were not hollow traditions, but affirmations of a social agreement everyone understood. These unwritten expectations extended well beyond interactions between men and women. Men addressed one another formally unless invited to do otherwise, exchanged firm yet restrained handshakes, and recognized that raising one's voice signaled a loss of dignity. A promise carried serious weight, because breaking it meant social isolation. Conflicts were handled through calm discussion over a drink, not through loud confrontation. Emotional restraint was not suppression, but a cultivated discipline that allowed society to function smoothly, protecting communal harmony through personal control. Nothing expressed British identity more clearly than the habit of lining up. During the 1940s and 1950s, orderly queues appeared almost magically wherever people gathered, from bus stops to air raid shelters. No law enforced this behavior. It rested on shared belief that disorder benefited no one. Cutting ahead was not just impolite, but a moral lapse that drew immediate disapproval. The queue embodied fairness, placing nobility and laborers side by side, patiently waiting their turn, united by mutual respect. The deeper meaning of queuing culture reflected a national spirit shaped by rationing, blackouts, and collective endurance. When bombs fell and supplies dwindled, the line became sacred space where equity outweighed privilege. Elderly women defended their places with dignity while allowing expectant mothers to pass ahead without bitterness. Children learned patience beside their parents, absorbing the lesson that their needs did not outweigh others. Waiting together forged unexpected bonds, as strangers exchanged small talk and news, turning ordinary errands into the social glue that held neighborhoods together during dark times. Afternoon tea reached its peak as a social ritual in the years after the war. It was a carefully staged performance in which every movement carried significance. Fine china was arranged with precision, teaspoons aligned correctly, and milk added only after tea in respectable circles. Tea was not merely refreshment, but a setting where relationships were reinforced and social order quietly affirmed. Invitations arrived formally, replies were written promptly, and lateness was unforgivable. Conversation avoided controversial topics, flowing instead through safe, neutral channels. The rules surrounding tea were detailed and exacting. Stirring followed gentle back-and-forth motions, never circles, to avoid clinking porcelain. Sandwiches were eaten in a precise number of bites, and scones were split horizontally, never vertically, with regional loyalties fiercely defended over the order of jam and cream. Pinkies remained lowered, slurping was taboo, and mistakes marked outsiders instantly. These delicate customs quietly maintained class boundaries through the smallest gestures. British communication relied heavily on understatement, where meaning lived beneath the surface. Saying something was fairly good often meant it was excellent, while calling it not bad amounted to high praise. Complaints appeared as polite suggestions, criticism was softened with compliments, and enthusiasm was deliberately muted. This careful calibration extended to posture and expression. Excessive emotion suggested unreliability. During air raids, destroyed homes were described as inconvenient, and profound loss as unfortunate luck, not from indifference, but as emotional armor against despair. Children learned early that strong feelings were managed privately. Tears were restrained, joy moderated, and anger transformed into dry humor. This emotional discipline became a defining trait, distinguishing British Reserve from more expressive cultures. Even catastrophe was met with raised eyebrows and wry remarks, reflecting a collective ability to endure without spectacle. Family dinners during the 1960s unfolded with near-military order. Each person knew their role. Fathers presided at the table, mothers coordinated from the kitchen, and children spoke only when addressed. Silverware was laid out with intimidating precision, each piece reserved for a specific purpose. Saying grace preceded meals, reinforcing gratitude as a social cornerstone. Manners were corrected swiftly, teaching patience, respect, and awareness of others through repetition. Letter writing was once a serious affair governed by strict rules. Proper salutations reflected relationships, handwriting revealed character, and quality stationery was mandatory. Errors caused embarrassment, as they suggested carelessness extending beyond the individual. Thank you notes were required within 2 days of receiving gifts, and failure to send them marked a person as poorly raised. Letters from afar were treasured, reread, and saved, each envelope representing effort, respect, and thoughtfulness. Public transport followed its own silent choreography. Seats were offered automatically, voices remained low, newspapers folded neatly, and eye contact was minimal. Boarding occurred only after others exited. Apologies flowed freely, even when blame was unclear. These small acts reinforced shared responsibility in a crowded nation, transforming daily travel into a demonstration of collective civility. Shopping on the high street involved ritualized politeness between customer and shopkeeper. Formal greetings framed every exchange, and even browsing required restraint. Transactions were personal, rooted in trust rather than paperwork. Conversations accompanied purchases, turning errands into social visits and commerce into community support. Early telephone use demanded careful etiquette. Calls were timed thoughtfully, voices stayed calm, and conversations were brief. Wrong numbers prompted apologies, and ending a call involved polite negotiation. The device was treated as a privilege, not a right, reflecting unease about technology intruding into private life. Neighborhoods functioned through respectful distance. Visits required invitation, noise was addressed with polite notes, and help arrived quietly during crises. Boundaries preserved dignity, allowing assistance without embarrassment. Communities thrived not through constant familiarity, but through reliable, restrained care. Today, many of these practices have vanished, replaced by speed, informality, and convenience. What has been lost is more than politeness. It is a shared framework for coexisting with grace. The question remains whether freedom from formality has truly enriched life, or whether something essential was quietly left behind. If this story resonates, share it with someone who lived it, or with someone who didn't. Understanding where that resilience came from helps connect generations shaped by very different worlds. If you enjoyed this story about 20th century Britannia, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Your subscription helps us keep bringing more content like this.